This is the Xavier Exponential Podcast with your hosts,
Kayla Evans,
Katherine Jones, and we have a new guest with us today. This is
Cori Harris. I am a pre-medical psychology major with a minor in sociology from St. Louis, Missouri. Yay!
So today we're going to let our newest addition tell us a topic, which is...
Our topic today is Dear White Professors, where we talk about white professors teaching at HBCUs and our feelings towards it. So how do you guys feel about white teachers teaching at HBCUs?
I really had a good experience talking about it, especially like last episode we talked about going from like a black space and a white space, and me coming from a white space in the South in high school wasn't the best for teachers. A lot of like political affiliations, especially during the Trump elections. Yes, a lot. Still hate that teacher to this day. Ms. Burns, if you out there, you was at my graduation, I don't miss you.
Don't miss you
at all. But coming from here to Xavier, especially my like particular class, research methods, is with Dr. Hammer, and you were in that class, right? No, like last semester.
Oh yeah. I had a teacher.
Yeah, so basically like the rundown of classes, we're going like on a research proposal. It's like first day out, you have to come up with this topic. And I took from like having the racial trauma growing up with, my topic is like racial dating practices and how they're like bad on black women, how they're like slick racist. So I had this whole topic, and my partner is a black woman. So we just talking, kikiing, like, ooh, that's yours? I was like, yeah. So we had a question, and he like walks around the room. He's real nice. And he sits down, he said, okay, he directs it to my partner. He's like, oh, what's your question? So we answered, and then he turns to me. I didn't have a question, so I was not prepared to tell a white man about how I think white people are racist. So
yeah.
He sits down and looks me dead in my eyes and says, so what's your research topic? I said, it's racial dating preference. He said, okay, tell me more. I was like, okay, well, they're kind of bad. And I was like, because white people, bad.
White people, period.
And I was saying all that, like how they do the stereotypes and inflict that. Looked me dead in my eyes and said, yeah, I understand you. And I'm stuck. Because I didn't think that a white man would understand where I'm coming from. That's the first time that I really had like a white man, especially from like Gen X generation and up, understand or like see me, period. Mm-hmm. So that was just a really good experience. Like also sub-experience from that was during the 2020 election when the votes weren't counted, everybody on the edge of their seat. Edge of their seat, hoping, praying to whoever was saint, hoping and praying. Since we had Catholic school, got to do saints, that'd be inclusive. So I text them the Zoom because we're on a Chem review, and I say Biden won because AP News, political science minor, came in clutch. So I had it first off the press. So I said it, and I said, ooh, I have a white teacher's classroom. I don't know why I put that in there. And then he said, thank God for Stacey Abrams. I said, you know what? I like being here. I like being here. But my experience, very different from Cori's experience, because I got a text message that said, my teacher called us the blacks. Okay, at an HBCU. So I immediately go back in group chat with Kayla, Cori, and I said, here's what's on the table. What do y'all want to do with it? So we decided to say, you know what? Podcast topic. So Cori, there you go.
It was so weird. We were doing this lecture about black solidarity during what's going on in the news and everything. But anyway, we were doing that, and she started talking about, I said she, I ain't gonna drop no names, but they started talking about what black solidarity is, and she started referring to us as the blacks, and it just really rubbed me the wrong way, because it was like, what's a black? I'm not a black. I'm a black person, but taking off person, it like dehumanizes us. So I was like, I don't know what a black is. So then I messaged the group chat we had for that class, and everybody was like, some people were like, oh, I get it, and other people was like, you're reaching. And I was like, for one, don't tell a black person they reaching about anything going around with race. Okay. So then that happened, and that was really weird for me. And then another thing in my research methods class I took last semester, our teacher said the only problem with like the Tuskegee syphilis experiment was that they couldn't generalize the results to any other race other than black men. And I was like, so not that you didn't treat these people for syphilis, that wasn't the problem. The problem was only you did it on black men. So I just think like professors here really have to be really cautious about their word choice and what they're saying and how they're saying it, because you're not talking to your friends, you know. You talking to people you can't relate with on certain levels. And then it also kind of leans into the white savior complex, to where you've also got to be really careful about overstepping your boundaries and making sure that you're an ally, but you're not the number one person in there. You know, you don't need to be the number one voice. You need to sit down and you need to listen.
It's a weird power dynamic, especially being like professor, student. There's a sense of like authority and subordinate. But when it comes to like Black trauma or just the Black experience, period, it's like I should be teaching you this, not the other way around. Mm-hmm. Especially when it comes to like Black history. So especially during the summer, we coming straight into school freshman year. We have COVID and also the rise of Black Lives Matter got more prominent. So all of that put together is just more. We need to open up a conversation instead of them just going based off of what they've been normally doing. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Like, what do you think about it? A shocking experience.
The terrible things I've experienced.
So, in my opinion, a lot of the white professors, they are choosing not to get it. Mm-hmm. They're choosing not to understand, like, that this is an HBCU, so our voices should be the loudest when it comes to certain things like this. So, for one, a white professor calling a student a Black in his classroom is not acceptable on any level. It's not something that I would like accept from anyone, to just call me a Black. Like, that's not
literally what's a Black.
Yeah, no, that's not
Webster Dictionary.
Right, I don't know what
that
is. Sorry.
That's not something that, it doesn't make sense, in all honesty. Like, what went through their minds to be like, yeah, Black, a Black. Like, it doesn't make much sense to me. And the fact that people can be overstepping definitely on what they feel comfortable with saying because they're in a Black space. So I think an air of caution has to exist with white professors, especially when there's so many of them here.
Yes.
At an HBCU. They need to be careful with what they're saying to not silence the people that are supposed to have the loudest voice here. So.
And then I think another thing with it is, did it just like roll off the tongue when they said it?
She was reading it like she was reading a bedtime story. Yes,
so
ma'am.
then you know that it's a part of their vocabulary then.
Right.
It's not just, oh, it's a little stutter, whatever. No, it just rolled off their tongue like that. So it's an avid part of their vocabulary in everyday life. So what do you like outside of these four walls?
It's weird. Like you don't even realize that you're exposing yourself when you do it. Because I don't think she did that lecture and she was intentionally like, yeah, I don't really think of Black people as people, so I'm just gonna call them Blacks. I think like something subconsciously was just like Blacks. If she just thought it was straight.
Yeah, it's an internalized issue.
Right, and it's scary that your teachers just think that, and that'll just go and that'll just happen, and they don't even think of what they're saying and the impact it can have on their Black students.
Yeah, definitely. So what do you think about like repercussions for what she said?
I don't know. Some people were talking about reporting her. I don't think she needed to lose her job or anything. I just think like it needed to be a conversation. Because again, I don't think she consciously was like, Black people aren't people. I think she was I think it just kind of happened. And even though it's not excusable because it just happened, it doesn't need to be punishment as in like, I'm going to steal your job. Like, no, just understand what you said, understand why it was wrong, and don't do it again.
So I have a question for both of y'all. Do you think that they should be held to a higher standard being on HBCU than white professors?
Yes.
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think that just like letting her slide would be like...
Wait, what's a higher standard? I think that's the bare minimum.
Yeah. But sometimes people excuse bare minimum for just praise.
Mm-hmm. That's a point.
Yeah, because you think that it's like them in their course, if it's not like a particular Black course, and they just do like something for Black history.
Course.
Like a course talking about the Black experience, and then February rolls around. It's, oh, look at this person that's Black. Let's learn about them. That's just the bare minimum. That's mediocrity, but they'll get praise, get tenure, when they should be held to higher standards. That like, no, you need to incorporate this more into your coursework, being that you're on HBCU.
And I don't even think it's just like a professor problem, like on the college level.
Administration problem.
No, that too. We come back to that. But I was saying like I went to a predominantly Black high school, but all our faculty was white. So I had teachers that told me that Nat Turner was crazy, that Marcus Garvey was crazy, and that Roosevelt was the best president we ever had.
That just raised my blood pressure.
I just did a presentation on Roosevelt on how he passed all the little laws during the New Deal, just so black people can live by white people. And it was just like, my teachers praised the mess out of that man for saving the American people. Okay. American asterisk white people.
So do you think that this like power dynamic between professor and student is like unethical in any kind of way?
Okay. Sit on that one.
To an extent, it is, because when you have white professors in a higher rank than some of the black people on the same level as them, there's quite a few white professors here, like quite a few of them. Some of the administration as well. So you see white people still taking a higher status to the black students, but in a black student space. Like, it's not entirely ethical, because I think that professors should be talked to, but also should be talked to on a higher level with someone above her, because it's a conversation that she needs to understand with more on the line than just a simple one-on-one conversation, because I personally believe we let people pass for too many things too often.
We do. America, you hear that? We do.
We just allow a lot of them to say I'm sorry, or oh, I didn't realize, and let that be enough. And I don't think that's enough anymore. It's something that needs to be spoken on more, so that they can say I'm sorry and then have something to follow that, like a course of action to make sure that they are not referring to their students as blacks or viewing their students as just the color of their skin. So I think the power dynamic can be strange when you're trying to explain that to a person that is your higher up. I mean, our professors are higher ups, they control our grades.
Yes.
But still you have to hold them to a standard, because it's not just necessarily about us and their class, it's about their view as a whole.
Right.
So
you deserve snaps for that one. She hit every point. I can't snap. I know, it don't work.
Just you talking about earlier, like your presentation or your project, how you were like, I didn't want to really show it to him.
Yeah.
It's the fact that like you feel like you have to censor yourself.
Yes.
Because your teacher is white. Like before we started this podcast, I was talking about like the experience of my teacher calling us blacks, and I just realized that I said like, I'm not gonna give you guys names because I still gotta pass the class.
Yeah.
Like that weird thing where it's like, I want to say something to you, but also you control whether I'm passing this class or not.
Yeah.
You control whether I get a scholarship renewed, stuff like that. So it's weird.
yeah, and that's where the power dynamic is difficult, because it's harder to have conversations with people that control aspects of your life that they might not be so comfortable with.
Yeah.
So
it's weird where you're trying to like hold somebody accountable for something, and then white fragility just pops out of nowhere. Just gets defensive as heck for no reason.
Or crying.
Yes, white women's tears are the death of everybody. The death of everybody. So it's just you trying to hold somebody accountable, say, this is my experience. This is how you affected me. They flipping around victim blame and just doing all that scapegoating.
Not the gaslighting, please.
Please stop. And it's just, you don't understand that when I'm saying white professors, I'm talking about as a collective, because we have two different individuals that's what we're trying to hold accountable for. My individuals I had a positive experience with. Cori's individual, not so positive.
They need to sit down and listen for a second.
Yes.
Just a moment.
And it's that conversation is just hard to have, because everybody's not willing to sit down at the table to have the conversation.
It's not hard
I
to
believe
have.
that
One
it should
side
be
is.
before a white professor decides I'm going to take this job at an HBCU, the conversation should be had with all of them that this is not your space.
Yes.
You are becoming a part of a black space.
Yes.
It's a historically black college. So when you're coming in as a white professor, the first thing you should be thinking is to understand your students, to understand the black people around you. So it shouldn't be where the conversation has to be had one-on-one based on their actions. After the fact, I think it should be something had during the hiring process, like letting them know this is not tolerated here. We are a black space, so you have to act accordingly. I mean, if that's not something that they're willing to do, then maybe the job isn't right for them.
Yeah. And I wonder during the hiring process, what happens if like a teacher is like conservative or Republican and they get on it? You have to take a moment of break.
Listen,
If they get on campus, because it's just like people all are like all sides of the political spectrum, but normally historical context, black people are more on the left side than the right side. So if you have a white professor come on campus that's more right leaning, how does that come into play?
I think there's a distinction that needs to be made between Republican and right wing.
Mm-hmm.
When I think right wing, I think alt-right. I think of people out in the streets with their sheets on and their little flags hanging up. Yeah, that's what I think. Right, yeah. That's what I think of when I think of like alt-right. I think you can be Republican and you just
Really?
Oh, let me get that. Wait,
Are we both political science?
I was for a little minute. Listen. I think you can be Republican, and because to be a Republican means you want like the government out of your money, but you also want them involved in your social, like if that makes sense. So I think you can. Go ahead. It do. I think you can align with certain parts of the Republican Party and still claim to be a Republican, but it changed in 2016 when the picture of the face of the Republican Party was an orange man.
Trump.
It changed. So now you equate being Republican with being a Trump supporter, and I don't think the two things are interchangeable. Because I believe you could have been a Republican and still voted for Joe Biden. He was like, this man's a racist. So there's a distinction that needs to be. If my teacher was a Republican, I would be like, sure, King. But if he come in with his little Trump hat on, baby, I'm leaving. I'm not going to sit in his class with this man who doesn't think I'm a person.
I do think the distinction between politics is important too, because being a Republican does not necessarily equal racist, and being Democrat does not necessarily equal
anti-racist.
Yeah, anti-racist. So I think a lot of the teachers here, the white professors here, most of them probably would not call themselves Republican. They would call themselves something aligning with liberal or Democrat, but that does not give them an excuse to pass some of their internalized racism, and because calling yourself liberal does not give you a pass.
It does not.
And I think that's where it starts to get a little, the white fragility starts to come out, because they feel like by being liberal, they're automatically on our side. But that's not true. Just because you're liberal, that doesn't mean that you're on our side. That doesn't mean that you stand for black people whatsoever. Like, there's plenty of liberal people who still have internalized racism, and it affects them in their life. So their politics is different than what they're acting on.
Yeah, I think you brought up a good topic, because a lot of white people think that because they're either like in a marginalized group, whether it's like disabled or LGBTQ+, that their whiteness can absolve. Like those marginalized things can absolve their whiteness, when it can't. You're white first. So I think when they get on campus and they get in a black space or like a political movement, they think just because of that they can talk louder over the black voices, and then it doesn't work out. It's just the movement that was made for you, or that you're mainly affected by it, because intersectionality of race and other parts of your identity come together where you're the most affected by it, and then all of a sudden you're pushed in the back of the line and you're just kind of forgotten about.
Well, that too, but also I feel like the other groups you're talking about, like other marginalized groups, then you just, as a black person, you lead yourself into facing microaggressions now. Now it's not macroaggressions and somebody who's screaming out calling you the N-word, it's somebody asking to touch your hair. So then you gotta balance that too. It's a weird dynamic, like with students and teachers alike, to try and balance that as a black student at HBCUs being taught by white teachers.
Yeah, and that's where the problems can come in, because most of them they're not macroaggressions, they are microaggressions. We don't see as many like big things in spaces like this, but the microaggressions from those teachers are still there. Like, they still exist, And would you consider the teacher calling you blacks microaggression, or would you say it was just outright?
I'll say it's a microaggression because there are black people in the group chat that didn't understand, like, oh, I don't get it. Like the same people that don't understand, why couldn't you touch your hair? Because
I've noticed that about Xavier though, that a lot of the students are very quick to jump to praise the teacher,
to defend them,
to defend the teacher, or to praise the teacher. They like to lick their butts. That's what it feels like. That's the euphemism. That is totally what it feels like in a lot of cases, not just for this, but as far as calling a teacher out for being in the wrong, students here do not do that. And it's something I will do. It's something I will do, but I've noticed that they don't do that. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting to me as to why they don't do it, but I guess that's another topic. But
talked about that. You got to censor yourself around your teachers. They're your teachers, you know.
It's part of, I think it could be somebody, what you said, censor themselves, because we talked about the grades. We need letters recommendation to get in, so you technically need them to move forward.
Okay, Kayla.
But also, it's like for me, it's where if that person was growing up in a white space period, they weren't exposed to that, so that their friends put those microaggressions over to them, so they thought it was normal. So I thought people trying to touch my hair was normal. I thought people saying the blacks was normal until like I got to like 10th grade and I started reading more black radical literature. And I was like, I don't want to be friends with another one.
You say, wait a minute, why you say that?
So exactly, it's different because I didn't grow up in a white dominated space. Mm-hmm. I did grow up in a black dominated space where my mother she's an educated black woman, so she taught me that you don't let other people just run over you just because you want their praise. Mm-hmm. So for me, I speak up on stuff that I don't agree with to my teachers, because let them play with my grade is something that's not right. There's people higher than them. Yeah. They have a boss. So it's just never been something where I'm like, no, I'm not going to say anything because, I don't want them to do something to me, because I'm not scared of them. Like, I know that if they don't have the right intentions in mind, they have a boss who will see it my way. Yeah. So,
but I have a serious question. How do y'all feel about if you called out this professor and they decide to say, okay, well then teach me? How do you feel about a white person asking a black person to educate
That's not my
them? Thank you. Thank you. I'm not here to exist to be an educator. Because I never understood. I'm 19. You an adult. You grown. Got a mortgage. Okay, AAPR. Okay, that's not my responsibility to teach you about this. Google is free. It is completely free. Pick the right sources though. Don't go on no Reddit thread. Please don't. Because I need you going
have some good info sometimes.
Okay, but also the white supremacists be on there. Okay. They try playing the second attack on
Stay out of them subreddits.
But it's not my job to educate you. Please pick up a book. We at a school. Go to the library. Promise they nice. I love you.
Promise they nice.
I promise.
In my experience, I find that I don't mind being the educator to an extent. Mm-hmm. I'm not gonna give you the full history on why what you're saying is wrong, mm-hmm. but I'm gonna tell you how I feel about it, and I'm gonna tell you how other people in my same position may feel about it. Mm-hmm. So, because I grew up in black dominated spaces, even though the white people were there, they were the country type. So I got a lot more people to want to understand, but didn't exactly know how to understand, because one thing I've realized, they can't understand unless they're in our shoes. Like they think we're being over dramatic. Yes. So just getting it from Google or getting it from a source that's not us telling you this is what bothers me and this is why, it doesn't have the same effect. So I don't mind for the teacher to have been like, so since this was wrong, tell me why. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to teach you the history on it, why, because that's not my job. Mm-hmm. Agreed. But I am going to tell you why it was wrong and what you can do to figure out why it was wrong.
Yeah. So I've had the experience where if I tell somebody just a blanket statement of what they said was racist, it's always why, and then another why, and then another why. And it's as you go further down the line, you're asking me to bring up trauma that I don't want to bring up, when I'm in the Rainey's grocery store in the line because you started singing Mo Bamba, you said the N-word. That's not, you should just know that it's just a blanket statement. It's just, coming from a black person, coming from a black woman, don't say it.
Because you don't need to explain yourself.
Exactly.
That's the end of it. Don't do it. Period. Why do I have to justify me being...
I get that to an extent, but I will relate that to parenting. When you just tell a kid, don't do that and give them no explanation, they're going to do it again.
Not white people are
because
just
relating it in that sense as far as discipline, it's been proven that if you just tell someone something, give them no explanation or reason, it doesn't mean anything to them. So that's where you get white people not doing things because they know you don't want them to do it. But when they get around their friends, they're going to keep doing it because you're not there to tell them not to. So I think an explanation is needed to an extent so they can understand that it's actually wrong and that it's not just, I don't like when you do this around me. Yeah. That it's something you shouldn't be doing at all, like, as a whole.
Where your point talking about, I always see Cori point.
I see both things now.
Because I know that it takes for like something extreme as to exposing somebody where they're cool, progressive liberal in front of you saying, oh yeah, I'm an ally. Behind closed doors, they're a completely different person. It takes you going through like a random Snapchat video and you posting that all through the internet for them to be exposed. And then also it's saying, well, if you don't want me to do this, hold my hand and teach me to step away. I'm like, I'm not going to do that to you. You're an adult. We're the same age. It's a different thing. And then also, I just realized what I said. People go to Google. We talked about in class with Dr. Roberts. A lot of sources that are taught are by white authors. They're not by black authors. So you're not getting the full black perspective because you're not getting the black voice. So it's just more like you need to tear everything down and rebuild it back up. It's not working. We just went like 3 different points and we just saw problems with all of them. So, yeah. But does that bring anything where you see like a back to white professors of them actually understanding the black student struggle?
I think that they will never truly understand the black student struggle. So that's why I don't think there should be as many of them as there are, because you can't relate on the same level. I think having black educated people dominate our teaching spaces is what is needed for us to come to terms with that we're also allowed to be black educated people to speak out on things. We're learning from a lot of white people that may have the same opinions, but it doesn't come across the same. It's not the same effect. When you see a black person teaching you something and be passionate about it, you resonate with it differently because you see yourself in that person.
Yeah.
We're not seeing ourselves in these teachers, so some of the material they could be teaching, it could be the exact same, but it's not as relatable.
Yeah.
So I think it's just understanding is not something that's truly going to happen, I don't think. I think listening, hearing, and having to realize, like, okay, I have to think this way, or I have to act this way to not offend people or to not speak over people, because maybe I shouldn't be the dominant person here. Like, maybe there shouldn't be so many white teachers because that's not who the black students want to learn from. But yeah.
Yeah, I see you brought up that perspective of it's an outsider looking in versus being an insider yourself. Yeah, and that's a good topic to make. But I also think with just using your white privilege effectively, because I know it's
I got a story time.
You do? You want me to finish? You want to start your story time?
You go in now. Tell
Okay.
story.
So I think that Xavier is a black space. So you have black thoughts going around, and then you have to leave outside of it. And majority of us are going to like PWIs for graduate school, workforce, any other professional schools. And you need those conversations that we have here to be spread out through everywhere. But it's like they don't want to listen to a black person when they say it. I guess it's like sugar-coated when a white person says it. And it's like, okay, I need you to say this so they'll listen to it. But it's also, you should be listening to me when I say it and not the other way around. I don't know why they think it's watered down when a white person says it. But when I say it, oh, she's mad. Oh, she's angry.
That's what it is.
Oh,
You answered your own question. You answered your own question. But story time. So it was like it was either winter break or the summer. It was a white girl who decided that she was going to transfer to Spelman, and she. and she said, she wrote this whole little long paragraph, and she was like, I'm so excited to continue my education at Spelman College and be amplify the black voices there. And people in the comments was like, but I just really like that point at the end where you were like, oh, it's because when I say it's angry, that's literally why.
I will never forget YouTube. My recommended. It was this one Vice video. Did y'all see? It was Morehouse. It was a black boy who went to Morehouse College. They made a whole 30-minute documentary, and the comments was like, oh yeah, he's doing good work. He's gonna we're teaching them. Why are you here? Because that's the whole thing of having.
Wait, did you say we're teaching them?
Yes. He's saying that we're educating the white person on.
Oh, got it.
Yeah. So he's saying that he was going to go out to the world. But that brings white savior complex. It's not my job to rally you up and to educate you for then you to be the main person as a leader in society.
Right.
When it's my struggle.
And you coming back and you're like, we need to help these poor kids at Spelman. Blah,
Yes.
blah. You need to what?
It's something just bothers me when white people are like, I'm so happy to go to this HBCU for the fact that it's HBCU.
For the fact that it's HBCU, for the fact that you get more money than I do.
That part of it rubs me the wrong way.
Because the minority scholarships.
That it's just a part of it rubs me the wrong way when I see white people coming to HBCUs just to immerse themselves in a black experience. I don't really think this is your space to do that. You've now made it about you. This is,
and this also isn't a vacation. It's not a trip to be like, ooh, let's go experience it.
Let's go play black for a little bit. That's how it feels.
Michael Jackson experience. Try again. Try again.
I like that one. That was a good one. And I think so far I have not seen where it's white people using black culture as an aesthetic. I have not seen that one yet. I'm pretty sure there's one out there. If you're out there, I can't say what I'm thinking because it's a podcast.
Get some help.
That she said the nice version of what I was thinking. But I think it's almost like when people use black culture as an aesthetic, they use it as a costume, pull it on, pull it off. I think you're doing the same thing with black education. You're pulling on, pulling off. That degree when it hangs up in your wall is not going to mean the same when it hangs up on my wall. Hopefully, in 4 years, please. But it's just not going to mean the same. It's you could have gone anywhere else. Why here? Why here specifically? What was so amazing about? I mean, the school is amazing, but to you, what did it mean? Because it does not mean the same thing for me as it means for you.
Yeah, and I think it's just odd because talking to a white person who chose to come to HBCU, it's usually a sports scholarship possibly or minority scholarship, or sometimes you get I want to immerse myself in the black experience, but that is weird because
that's weird.
It is because black culture has influenced so much of the country. Yes, so much. So there's ways to immerse yourself in it without having to infiltrate my space that was meant for me to make me more comfortable. Because the only reason these schools were created, the only reason the HBCUs exist is because we were not allowed in white spaces.
Yes.
So I'm not saying keep all the white people out, don't allow them in our space, but they can come to our space with some stipulations.
You can't, so that's what you're saying.
You can't just come in our space and make it yours.
Yes.
It is still our space. I think you have to respect that it is our space at the same time. So getting an education from HBCU is fine. It's the same as any other degree with a piece of black history to go with it. Mm-hmm. So if you're not going to use that piece of black history that you're going to gain from coming here, then don't.
I noticed that when I talk to somebody who decided to come to HBCU, they said, oh, because it was easier to get into, or they gave me more money, when they didn't realize that struggle that you said, oh, it was easy to come into, I never got that chance. Coming here, trying to get money, it was hard. Trying to go anywhere else outside of school, it's going to be hard. So it was the perfect example of white mediocrity getting praise and getting all these benefits and awards for doing the bare minimum for something. And you just reaping all the benefits of something that was made for me, specifically.
Yeah. Well, the college admissions process is a racist process anyway. Talk about that on the next episode. But yeah, so you going against that, you're going against the whole system of white supremacy. It's just a lot on top of a lot on top of a lot. And being black is exhausting. It's very tiring.
I'm so glad you said
it's
that.
It's very tiring.
Because it's bringing up, scrolling on my timeline, just seeing
exhausting
people who look like me or my dad or my sister getting cute. It's not even
murder.
That is a whole
white
other
professors.
It's not even white professors no more. It's just, you see these people, how do I want to put this? It's a whole lot to unpack. We're saying it within the black struggle living in America. We've seen it. We've all in this room have seen it, and we know what's going on, but the white people have not seen it yet. Until the summer when it just became blatant in their face. So then they want to think that they're helping by doing like an overflood of like, not black media, but just the black experience throughout like social media, the news, whatever. And so it's from people who've seen it like us from starting from like 6th grade or even lower than that, because 6th grade I know when Trayvon Martin was killed. And it's you're seeing on your timeline something that's supposed to be a break from the world is just murder, not cold-blooded murder, and they're using it as like a political prop for it, saying like, oh, I'm being a good ally with this. That person, they're laying in a pool of blood.
Yeah.
Their body is in a street for I don't know how many hours.
The recent video, the 13-year-old
Yes.
was killed. I won't watch it either. I won't watch it either because I'm not going to subject myself to looking at that just because it's on social media. Like, I refuse. The trauma that can come with watching all of these videos of people getting murdered one after the other, it's not something that our white professors or our white peers or anybody will understand, because when they scroll on their timeline, that is not them. That could be my brother. And possibly that was the first time they saw it. When me, it's probably like I don't know how many person I've seen getting killed. Right. It's just the George Floyd video, all of that. They're hard to watch. They're things that you don't want to watch because it's just like this. It's just black trauma being broadcasted for everyone to see, which is to an extent is good. It's like, okay, finally it's in their face. They have to confront it. They have to look at it. They have to see it. But it's also like, so do we. We already knew that it was here. We knew that it existed. All these videos that exist, we didn't have to see the video to know that was happening.
Yeah, right.
Like, we didn't have to see the video of Ahmaud Arbery getting killed. We didn't have to see George Floyd getting his neck stepped on. We didn't have to see the 13-year-old kid getting killed to know that those kinds of things are happening. So for us, it's traumatic, but for them, it's an eye-opener. So in a way, it's needed, but it's also not.
Isn't that scary though? That they have to like see a video of it for them to be like, oh, maybe there's a problem here. We've been telling you for centuries, but no, there's video proof now. Now all of a sudden, it's this revelation, and you're like, oh, maybe they are telling the truth.
Maybe a little bit, because there's still people that'll deny it. There's still people who will agree with the officer. Right. I didn't know if this was my taser or my gun, or he looked threatening, I feared for my life, or he was on drugs, it was carbon monoxide, all of that just crap. Now they're repeating that because it's in your face now, hard to deny, but they can still deny it because it's not them.
What's even scary is like the videos. I know for me, personal struggle was like I've gotten exhausted looking at murder, straight up murder on my timeline every day, and it's like, do I scroll? Am I helping the problem or being part of the problem? It's like, how do I balance being helping the movement versus my own mental health? And it's just, it's like a quick little tap, gotta scroll because I can't do it.
Right, but that's not your torch to carry, because that's not your system that you need to break down. White people are the only people that can break down white supremacy.
Yes.
Black people can do everything they can, organize all the movements, but if it's just black people, you're not going to get anywhere. White people are the only ones that can sit there, recognize their privilege, recognize the power they have, and do things to dismantle that system.
Yes, and it's almost like with every movement, with the Stop Asian Hate, with the Black Lives Matter, they always want to pin the problems on another racial group instead of saying, this is white supremacy, it is white people's problem. Why are you not putting the accountability on this person? Instead of saying, oh, well, you should have been doing that. Because history has shown that all minority groups have all rallied together and helped each other. It's the white people that needed this so-called wake-up call. And then when they finally wake up, they want to have this little, like, oh, I was radicalized because I was reading Angela Davis. I was radicalized because I saw Sandra Bland being hung, or her body being staged with her eyes being propped up for the mugshots because they killed her before then. That's how I was radicalized. I didn't read a book to get radicalized. I did mention that book.
I did read one book.
I did read one book, but it's just a different things where it's like, listen, use your white privilege effectively, and then maybe we can have a conversation where you enter this black space.
I don't even like the word radicalized because I don't think that is just so radical. Like
To ask
for basic human rights or to be treated like a human person, that is not radical to me whatsoever or at all. Like the radical is wearing hoods on your head and burning crosses in people's yard. That's radical. Radical is not going in the streets and protesting for your own rights, because that's exactly what a lot of people have said about the Black Lives Matter movement this summer. They were like, they're tearing things up, they're doing this, they're doing that, they burned the Target or some stuff, and it's just like, that is a repercussion of your radical system. It is not us being radical, it is a consequence of your radicalism.
And even if it's the same, a building is not the same as a bullet. It's something it's something you can have an insurance claim to get that money back. He's never
You
going
in my brain. You are in my brain. I was literally about to say that. I was like, insured goods do not equal black bodies.
Exactly.
That's not the same thing. And I don't even like saying black bodies.
Yeah, I was
Because
about to
again,
say.
that's dehumanizing them.
Yes.
But at that point, that's what they're looked at, because they're falling so quickly and so like nobody's batting an eye, because they're just like, yeah, this is the system we have. Black people are like, y'all are finally seeing it, right? White people sitting up there, oh my God.
Some of them are doing that. Some of them are going, oh my God. Some of them are going, that's not a consequence of me. Not all of them are bad. It's just one. It's just that one. How many times can we say it's just that one?
Yeah.
How many times?
It's like they tried to, all these people who were killed by police were doing like the most mundane acts in everyday life. And then somehow white people try to like flip it and villainize them for driving your car, walking with the sandwich in your hand, taking your cell phone out. What was the little boy just walking in the street? And
With his hands
But
up.
right, you can make this whole narrative about, oh, this child had a gun, and people will believe you until the body cam footage comes out and that child has their hands up. Now it's a whole different
And they're
story.
still telling a new story. So to me, it's like, I don't understand how you. First of all, they said, I need to see it to believe it. Now you see it and you still don't believe it. So the problem is not that they don't believe it or they don't understand. They don't want to.
yes.
They don't care to. It doesn't benefit them to break down a system that benefits them. So for us, we need dismantling of certain things. So the burning down of parts of that city, that's nothing to us because it doesn't mean anything, really. That's part of their system. We're breaking down their system that they won't break down themselves. So,
And then it comes to a point where it's like white people need to step outside of self-interest and just look around and see how your like privilege that you have is affecting everybody else. Because then they want to see, like with marches, they say, oh, they want special rights. Right now, we just fighting for equality. We haven't even gotten to equity, which is like the main portion of what we need. Because equality, that's big past gone. It's we need special programs where we're not even on special programs where we're on the same playing field for you. Because right now, you running, I got a ball and chain to my leg for me, and it's not the same race I'm running. But you have it in your mind, oh, affirmative action. Do you know what affirmative action is? Because I promise you, every time I see somebody on Twitter say it, wrong definition. It's the complete wrong definition. Because I didn't even know the right definition. I thought white people trying to tell me wrong.
They was teaching you.
Exactly. In freshman year, until I got to my intro politics class, and Dr. Frey just said no. Affirmative action is, they used to have quotas like, oh, out of 25 people, we need 2 black people to fill out our diversity quota. Affirmative action erased that. So affirmative action made where I can be in this space with you, and I deserve here. Do you deserve being here? That's the real question, because I can have this whole essay. You can talk about kicking a ball on the soccer field and still get the same thing as me. We ain't the same, boo. We ain't the same. I promise you we not the same. But do y'all have any else to add to that?
More of the story. Hire more black professors.
Yes, because we need somebody to talk to about all of this. It's not the same.
Or not
No, keep that part.
And teach white professors how to exist in these spaces without stepping on our toes, without stepping on our voice.
Yeah, well, I guess we gotta get uppity now because we've been talking about this. But that's all we have for today. Again, I'm Katherine.
I'm Kayla.
And
Cori.
And we're excited to have her. We also have Exponential students behind the camera. We have Liza Montgomery and Bria Evans. So we're really excited to have with y'all. And we'll see y'all next week. Bye.